I realized what my dream was when I was in college, yet I put it on hold until almost 15 years later. Let's discuss why. It was basically because of the men in my life. The men that I was dating primarily were the men that I was looking to date. And I think especially right now, and more people are looking into, like, are relationships good for me? Should I just focus on myself? Should I try and find a partner? I think there are some people out there who can possibly learn from my mistakes, and so therefore I kind of want to do a story time series where I'm sharing my mistakes. My very first mistake, one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my life, is trying to find a relationship before pursuing my dreams instead of pursuing my dreams instead of finding a relationship, or starting to pursue my dreams and then finding a relationship that was compatible with said dreams, like as I was in the process of pursuing them, if that makes more sense. So first off, this was not one specific man, this was not even a handful of men, this is probably a couple dozen worth of men. When I was dating men, I was terming myself something of a serial monogamist. I dated men from something between 3 months and 3 years, and then I finally got to the point where I couldn't take the relationship anymore, because actually secretly deep down inside I'm not actually attracted to men. I just pretended about it a lot for many years of my life. That's another thing that I did that ruined my life. All of these decisions existed in a complicated state of arrangement. Like, none of these decisions are decisions that were made on their own. All of them were intimately involved with one another in multiple different ways. Your job has more impact on your relationship than a lot of people want you to believe. Your relationship has a lot more impact on your job than a lot of people would have you believe. If you're not happy in one, it's going to affect the other in terrible, horrible, no good, very bad ways. And personally, another reason why I skipped from relationship to relationship is because I wasn't really necessarily marriage motivated. I'm kind of something of a person who, I realize that a relationship doesn't need to last forever to have value and meaning. There are some people in my life that I only dated for a couple of months, but that had a really profound impact on both of our lives, and nothing too terrible happened. I'm glad for the experience, and breaking up, sure, it was sad when it happened, but it was an ultimately good decision for both of us. Like, sometimes the right decision that you can make when we are with any partner is the decision to break up, but I think we overvalue this concept that if a relationship eventually ends and it's not ending in one or both of your deaths, that it has no value and it's bad and you messed up. And I had a lot of that mentality around me as a kid, but I also saw a lot of friends who had parents that didn't stick through the long run. And personally, my parents stayed married, so that definitely influenced my mind in some ways, but a lot of the people around me, their parents didn't stay married. And if their parents did stay married, they stayed married for the kids, and it was ultimately a bad decision. So I had kind of had it honed in my brain that a relationship didn't need to last forever to have value. But that also made me in a position where it wasn't just thinking about what my current significant other wanted and would accept and could tolerate and things of that nature. It was also considering what people in the future would want, what they could tolerate, things of that nature. And I know that I'm something of a hard sell. Like, sure, I've got that manic pixie dream girl energy going on, but also it's because I'm really messed up inside. There's a lot going wrong in this noggin. There are a lot of mistakes that I've made in my past. There's definitely a good bit of baggage, especially as I got into my 20s and I was like, oh, I've been in a good number of relationships. And especially, like, also seeing how a lot of celebrity females were treated when they were in like 2 or 3 relationships, and I'm like, ooh, I've been in more than that. All of these factors conspired to motivate my decision-making process too. And like I hinted on the top, I didn't realize I was a lesbian. And once I realized and could no longer deny anymore that I was attracted to women, I was like spending over a decade and a half trying to convince myself that I liked men also. And unfortunately, sadly for me, that is not the case. But I was so hung up on these ideas of what I had to be, what I needed to be for success, for my career, for my future, all of these things. And in my head, I had always been told that for all of those things, I needed to have a competent man on my side. I had no idea who I was, because often when you're terrified of being one thing, you run as hard and as fast as you can in the opposite direction, and it has you in this position where you're like, I couldn't possibly be a lesbian, I've dated so many men. That is why I refuse to believe that all these celebrity women that have been with a lot of men couldn't possibly be bi or couldn't possibly be lesbians, because one of the big signs of a lot of people that are later in life sapphics is dating a lot of men, because you're looking for somebody that fills the hole, and you're knowing that it's not filling the hole the way that, I know this is a bad metaphor, but stay with me. You know that people aren't filling the holes in your life in the way that you need to have those holes filled, but you cannot admit to yourself why that is. So you're just definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and again, expecting different results. When you're terrified of who you are, it doesn't matter how self-analytical you are, how well you know yourself in other regards, you don't actually really, really know yourself because you're afraid to look down the deep dark hole where your secrets lie and acknowledge those and actually integrate them into parts of yourself so you can be a healthy human and be the person that you want to be and pursue the things that you want to pursue. So I knew that making videos was something that I loved so much in film and in cinema. And when I was in film school, YouTube came out. And sure, it wasn't a valid career back then, but I wasn't really thinking of it in a career sense back then either. I was just looking at it as something that I really wanted to do. I just wanted to make little videos and share them with people because I knew on a lot of different levels, I am not a Nepo baby. I am a woman. I wanted to go into being a director or a cinematographer. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is by making little things on my own. But also, I noticed that a lot of the guys around me, even the guys who were in film programs and things like that, looked down on the early women YouTubers. And let me make it clear, YouTube is not like it is now, and it wasn't like it is now back when this discussion was happening, when these thoughts were happening and everything like that. People just randomly took videos of their life or of the things going on, their friends, their concerts they're going to, things of that nature, and just throwing them up on YouTube with no editing. There was even very little like personality displayed in a lot of the earliest content because it wasn't being made for any sort of audience. It was just being made for our friends. Like the number one reason we were using YouTube back in the day was just to share like clips of things that happened at parties with friends that hadn't happened to been there. But I loved the idea that I could just make something really quick and upload it and people would look at it and I could show it to my friends and I could show it to my family and maybe people that were around me would like it and things of that nature. But in film school, a lot of people just look down on it because they're like, oh, well, it's not making an actual film. Like, why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you just want to like try and get a job on an actual film? Because I know I'm not going to have any type of control on an actual film set for many, many years. And this is a way that I can have control over the entire thing. I can do whatever I want. I can make whatever I want. But then as YouTube became more personality focused, there was this idea that the women that make content on YouTube are just attention hungry and they're attention whores and they're not good women. And like, why would you want to date a girl that was a YouTuber? And like a lot of sentiment that was coming from the people that were around me. And especially like by this point in time, I had dropped out of film school. I was in film school before the recession of 2007. The recession made me go into IT as a career. But even then I was thinking, I'll have my IT career. I'll have all this time on the weekends where I can go out and I can make film and I can do all these things and I can post it on the internet. But then I was becoming more and more aware of the fact that the people that I was dating and the people in my circle looked down on the type of women that made this content. And I was playing WoW. This is like 2007 era. I was playing WoW and I would just post like raid videos up on the internet. And the reaction to me posting a raid video was completely different around the guild to the men that were posting the raid videos. And also Gamergate happened. If you're unfamiliar with Gamergate, all you really need to know is that if you were a publicly facing woman on the internet and you had an opinion about gaming that the gaming boys didn't like, that they would do every single thing they possibly could to ruin your life, your career, everything around you. And again, these are people that are entirely separate of my life. They're causing me to make a decision to not pursue something that I feel like I'm going to enjoy, to not pursue something that I feel that I could have a lot of fun with, a lot of success with. And then as YouTube became more and more developed as something that people put more effort into, had better results out of, even started making money off of, I figured at some point that the people around me's opinions would change. But unfortunately, a lot of them didn't care about YouTube as much. They didn't see YouTube the same way. They didn't yearn to make content the way I did. And I feel weird saying it that way, but it's never been about making content for me. That's why things on TikTok are very difficult for me. And that's why I just want to make videos that I care about for here, and just see how they do and see if people like them and see if people resound from them and want to hear my stories and want to hear the things that I have to say. But through so much of my life, for a wide variety of reasons, I was playing fake it until you make it. And maybe fake it if you make it works. If you're trying to learn a new skill, if you're trying to become more social, or if you're trying to do something that is narrow and focused and a little thing. It does not work when you're talking about your entire life, your entire person, your entire being. And I think that's actually why so many people are so unhappy, because we are forced to make so many big decisions about our life when we're still comparatively very young. We're We're making decisions about spending a lot of money for college. We're making decisions about getting married sometimes very early. I know that's becoming less common nowadays, but people are still making the decision to spend a ton of money on college. And once you spent a ton of money on college, you're in a different financial perspective. You can't just decide to quit your job and go pursue your dreams, you know? And as I said, there's that cruel paradox. When you are terrified of the person you are, you run as far and as fast as you possibly can in the opposite direction. And that just really fundamentally makes it so much more challenging to get back to being the person that you are and the person that you need to be and the person that is most healthiest for you to exist as. It also makes it hard to just quietly exist in your own mind. So I was jumping from relationship to relationship because I needed that distraction of another person, and also I needed somebody else to just orient my whole being around. I think a lot about the film Runaway Bride and how Julia Roberts' character, everything down to how she took her eggs was the same as the men that she was dating, and she would get to the point where she was about to get married and she would realize, oh, I've totally changed myself for this person, I don't actually know who I am, and then she would run. That was absolutely 100% me. I did not feel safe in my own mind. I did not feel safe in the quiet. I always had to have a distraction. If there wasn't something going on, I was just sad and I didn't know why, and it made it hard for me to tell the truth to therapists because there were just things that I knew that I should probably say to the therapist, but I also knew that I couldn't necessarily handle I couldn't handle going down that path. I was not emotionally ready to go down that path yet. And there were definitely many times over the years where I would sit down for a little bit and I would self-analyze and I would be like, maybe I'm a lesbian, and then I would look around and I'm like, well, do I really look like a lesbian? I've dated all these men. And then I would find another relationship and figure out that, okay, this is going to be the relationship that I fix him and he turns around and fixes me. And because I have that person to turn around and fix me, I won't be scared anymore. But also what I found is that every time I would fix one of those guys, they wouldn't want me anymore because they would see me as broken. And rather than returning the favor, they would be like, well, I'm healed now. You didn't do any work to heal yourself, so I'm going to leave you. And I'm like, I was doing all the work to heal you, but congrats. And a lot of them went on and married the next person after me. So yes, I do feel a little bad for the people that I kind of deceived when I wasn't quite sure if I was straight or not. But I didn't fully believe that I was a lesbian until very, very recently. And also, most of the people that I dated learned important things about themselves. I fixed them. I put a ton more work into the relationship than they did. But also, now that I'm more educated, I'm more aware of how these things work. So much of our society tells girls that we need to care what men think. And it wasn't until I read the Lesbian Master Doc that I realized I wasn't actually attracted to men. I was attracted to this idea of male validation. And one of the things that I look back on is like, I would be in a relationship and he would be interested in me, and I could tell that he was getting to the point where he was about to propose. And I'm like, ooh, I'm not ready for that oyster, because it's like, even if I'm happy with this relationship, I don't want to be married to that guy. Now forever, for real? No. Everything, as soon as somebody got a little bit serious sounding, it was time for me to run. But it wasn't until I actually sat down and read the Lesbian Master Doc that I was able to realize, oh, this is not actually attraction. What I feel for women is actually attraction. I've just ran from it my whole life. I've pretended it's not there, so I've never actually allowed it to blossom. But I would be in these relationships with these men that seemed to be completely happy with me and in love with me and wanting to spend the rest of their life with me, and that was not enough because I wanted them to think about me and to treat me and to react to me in the way they did their male friends. A lot of men just frankly respect their male friends more than they respect any women in their lives, even the ones that they're married to, even the ones that are their children. It just, unfortunately, there have been a number of times in my life where even friends that have seemed to have viewpoints that would not support that, they have not done the work subconsciously to look at the things that they dislike. Like, there's so many situations I would be told that I was too emotional and I need to tone it down and all of these things, and that is not what I need to do. That is not what needs to happen in situations. We villainize emotion and compassion and all of these things that we traditionally associate with femininity, and that basically teaches men to not really like women that much and to prioritize their guy friends because they're logical, they're stable, they're reliable, they're not fighting the same battles that women are fighting. And also, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be emotional. We have emotions for a reason. It is like a benefit of our species, actually. And something else that I've really struggled with as somebody who didn't realize I was AuDHD until fairly recently is that I have always needed in my life a co-regulator. I didn't realize what that was or anything until recently, but what I did know is when I lived on my own, my life kind of went to crap. If I lived with other people, I had other things around me to kind of like orient me in being a human, to remind me to eat, to remind me that, you know, a day has passed, it's time to shower now. It's not that I like don't want to do those things or can't do those things. It's that I very frequently lose track of the time that is passing around me because I hyperfixate on things that interest me, and that makes my health kind of go downhill. But the other problem is if you need a co-regulator, if you need outside regulatory factors, and you are a young woman and you are the manic pixie dream girl trope, there are tons of narcissistic men that are going to come along and take advantage of that and use that to control you and use that to get them under your thumb. Unbeknownst to me, there were these signs that I was giving out that were just clear beacons through the night to these aggressive, intolerable men who just wanted to control me, wanted to tell me what to do. And it was more, you can't do what you want to do. You can't live your dreams. I don't want you to be a YouTuber. It's not safe. La da 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 da. A lot of these men would seek to isolate me from my family, from my friends, and things of that nature. And then it doesn't help that pop culture and a lot of familial beliefs kind of treat women that women should always be against women because that girl's just trying to tank your relationship because she's jealous or because she wants to steal your man or because both. And sure, there are a ton of women that are like that because that is what their parents have taught them to be. That's what society has taught them to be. But what we actually do need in our lives is other women to kind of help us to help us with the co-regulation problem so we don't necessarily fall prey to these people that seek to harm us, but also to act as soundboards when we're in these relationships and we're like, he said this, that, and the other. Does that make sense to you? There are so many times that I knew that something was wrong in my relationship and I went to a friend and I asked that friend for advice and my friend was like, yeah, that's wrong in your relationship. You probably should be out of that relationship. And even though I was the person who asked her for advice, I was hoping she was going to tell me that I was just being crazy and that there was nothing there and, you know, your relationship's happy. And because she didn't say that, I'm like, oh, well, she's clearly just jealous. She clearly just wants my man. We are in positions where either we don't have people around who can point out the red flags in our relationships, because here's the thing, we cannot see the red flags in our own relationships because we want to trust those people. So many people believe that they could not possibly be manipulated, but here's the thing. The people that get manipulated the most are the people who believe they cannot be manipulated because you're not even open to the potential that could be happening. But also, when you want to trust people, you see things through a different lens. You're more sympathetic to them and their needs and things of that nature. You are not in your right headspace because you want things to go a specific way. You need outside figures who you can trust, who have experience in relationships, who know what things to look for, who have an objective perspective, who care about you, and who want you to succeed and to be happy and healthy above all else. And we end up in these positions where our friends don't agree with us and we dismiss them because they're just trying to point out the red flags, is that then we don't have anyone around us who can help us and will help us and has our best interests in mind in helping us. And going back into ways that like media and pop culture kind of misled me on relationships and why I think discussion of pop culture and discussion of pop media and such is so important is because that is what I had an idea in my mind of normal. Like you have one family that you come from. Yes, that is a sample size of one relationship. You may have a handful of people around you, but most of the relationships you're going to get exposed to in your life are going to be pop culture. They're going to be TV characters, film characters, book characters, things of that nature. Our idea of what is normal in a relationship is very heavily defined by the type of media that we've consumed and the level of media literacy that we have about our media. A lot of people, especially nowadays, do not have particularly high media literacy. They do not necessarily realize that the things in their lives are not going to mirror the things that happen in movies. They don't necessarily realize that this idea that like there's one person and he's going to be your soulmate and all of those things, sure. I guess sometimes it happens, but just thinking of all of the friends in my life, I have known probably dozens, if not hundreds of people who have married their soulmate and it has literally been the worst thing possible for them. Because if we're the type of person who believes in the one, or especially if we're the type of person who believes that I can only have one sexual partner for my entire life, it makes it very easy for narcissists who can identify us by the fact that we're hopeless romantics that believe in the one and who might possibly also think that we should only sleep with one person for our entire life. those people, sure, it's not guaranteed that you're going to be victimized by them, but you're running around in your life with a giant spotlight on your head that you're totally unaware is existing. So many hurt romantic people who have this idea of the one are just walking around like lighthouses, while meanwhile there are all of these narcissists who are like, oh, lighthouse over there, lighthouse over there. Like, if you're wondering, what's wrong with me? How do I always date bad people? Like, I don't understand. It is because there are things that you believe in, things that you are very clearly showing with your being that are allowing these people to identify you and to victimize you. I have seen so many times when people have been like, we feel the highest highs, and that means that we're also going to have to feel the lowest lows. I mean, sure, when you go into a relationship, potential goes both ways. The potential for good is equivalent to the potential for evil, and depending on the participants involved and the actions that happen, it can swing it both ways. But it should not be a roller coaster. You may think that that feels good because when you're on top, you're kind of delusional and it does feel good, but you cannot endure this high and low and high and low and high and low for your entire life, because you can't feel that for very long like that. You're going to get numb from what high previously was and from what low previously was, and you're going to need to take things to higher levels to get that high feeling again, but in the process of doing that, you're going to open you up to the next lower, getting worser and worser and worser. Now that I've seen friends who are in relationships that are less explosive, less roller coastery, I've realized that the healthiest relationships that I've seen displayed in my life are the people that are in like a stable, steady relationship that, sure, there are highs and lows, but they're not highs and lows because you're trying to hurt each other and you're being toxic and you're not communicating. They're just natural highs and lows because they're the natural rhythm of life, but you're communicating well through it. You know what to expect. You've got each other's best interests at hand. You're not trying to sabotage yourself or the relationship or anything like that. You're not doing things deliberately to hurt that person. You're both coming to things together and seeing this is a problem that we both have. It is not a problem that we have with one another. Another thing that really impacted the way I thought about relationships and the way I thought about women is the fact that, like I said, I went into IT. I was one of the only women, if not the only woman, in a lot of the offices that I worked in throughout most of my career. And that put me in a position where men forgot after a while that I was a woman. They would just go about their day and say things as though there wasn't another woman in the room. And I had all these ideas in my mind about how I needed to be low maintenance, and I needed to not be emotional, I needed to not complain, and I needed to, in fact, make fun of the women who did all of those things. I turned into an absolute pick-me, which then further isolated me from female friends, and also ensured that the only people that were going to date me were people that were not necessarily good for me. And on top of that, they weren't even going to want to commit to me, because a lot of times the type of men that date pick-me's do not want a woman that is just going to willingly submit. They want to go out into the market and find a woman who is very independent and who is really strong and she really believes in herself and all of those things, and he wants to make her submit to him. Like, sure, some of those men who are after low maintenance women are actually genuine men, but most of the men who say that do not actually want that. Because a lot of times in career spaces, like I said at the top, your career and your relationship go hand in hand, and there are silent ways that men, especially men in positions of power, signal the value of the woman that they have as the trophy. And very often this is communicated by complaining about your wife and your wife's high standards and your wife's high maintenance and things like that. That is not like an act of I don't want those things. It's a humble brag. And once you understand it as such, you'll realize that if you were trying to get that relationship, that type of relationship in the first place, you were now going about it the completely backwards way. And sure, there are tons of guys out there who just want somebody who is low maintenance and just want somebody who is genuine, but they're going after sensitive, emotional women who wear their heart on their sleeves and things of that nature. They're not trying to go after a woman who's strong, independent, and don't need no man. He's looking for a woman that's like open and active with her emotions and realizes that she wants a partner to go through the world. Partners who are genuine are not going to play the game that way. They're not going to play it like that. And another way that dating culture and corporate culture are tightly intertwined is this idea that A, I should be making an equal contribution in all ways, both financially and in terms of chores and things of that nature, which no matter how much I worked, even when I was working harder than the men that I was dating, I was still making less money. I was in a lot of situations where the only way that I was able to even try and get promoted in places was to spend all of my free time on the nights and weekends. You remember that free time that I was supposed to use when I wanted to make videos and stuff like that? Yeah, that free time. I was using all of that free time towards developing myself for my career, because I thought that otherwise, if my man's career pursued faster than mine did, which it always will be because men have an easier way in tech, they're gonna feel like, oh, well, you're not participating equally. And like the number of times that like the person I was in a relationship with was making 2 or 3 times as much money as me, but still expected me to be a 50-50 contributor, even though I was also trying to do as many of the chores as I possibly could, despite having a disability. And there was this like, you're making less money because you have a disability. You can do less chores because you have a disability. Therefore, you're less valuable. There's all of these ways that things were kind of stacked against me, so that I was constantly working harder and harder and harder to be able to do what was seen as my expected share. And very often the men that were succeeding in these spaces were the men who had a spouse that did everything for them, so he didn't have to do chores, he didn't have to do work around the house. These men resented me a lot because they felt me personally responsible for why their career wasn't moving faster, because they had to spend time vacuuming and doing the dishes, and if they were spending that time working on their career development, they would be higher in their career. And it didn't matter whether or not they were willing and able to use that time, because I know very often, very many of those cases, if he actually had that time, if I was doing all of the chores, he's the type of man that would just be spending all that time on WoW anyway. They were just trying to get more gaming time and also make me feel worse, so I wasn't in a position where I could demand better of them. And it became a consistent like lowering and lowering of relationship standards, because I could tell that they didn't feel that I deserved it anymore, because they didn't feel I was contributing enough. It is so frustrating to look back at my life and all of the opportunities I didn't take, all of the things that I didn't do because I was terrified about either losing a man or losing a job, or in many cases losing both. Because I know most of the men that I was dating were not going to sit with me if I was unemployed, even for a short period of time. And also there's just the element of like knowing that if I made a YouTube channel and if my coworkers saw it, that I would not be taken nearly as seriously at work. And that would be yet another thing that just added additional complication to my life. And so I gave up on my dream of something that I have consistently wanted to do for 15 years because of people who do not care about me, would not piss on me to put out the fire if I was ignited. There were so many times when my male coworkers would report me for teeny tiny little rule violations that I did, that literally everyone in the department did, because they knew that I, as the woman, as the marginalized person, especially once I was openly disabled at work, I was going to be the one who disproportionately took the brunt of that. Even though I did a lot more tickets than a lot of the men around me, I would be the one who was getting terminated for a stupid violation that literally everyone did. Meanwhile, while I'm busting my butt, I'm seeing the men that I'm dating just move so easily in the industry because they're white men. Even dating people that have things that you would think would hold them back, like criminal records, and more importantly, not just being content to sit down, look pretty, and shut up because I was a woman with an opinion. I was a woman who said no. I was a woman who said, hey, I don't think this is going to work. I didn't realize how much the culture promoted yes men. I didn't realize how much the people that I dated wanted somebody who was just as much as a yes man at home as they were at work. Trigger warning, going to discuss SA for a second. Another way that work and my relationships were heavily interrelated is the fact that I noticed if I was single and I worked someplace and guys around me knew that I was single, I was more likely to get SA'd. And so I very frequently took to dating someone just so I had a man to protect my virtue, or more often dating somebody who I worked with, often somebody who was either literally or kind of figuratively in a position of power over me, so that that person had a good motivation to protect me, because that person did not want me to go forward to the bosses and be like, I'm dating the boss. And realistically, as a woman in tech in the era that I was in tech, everybody thought I was sleeping with the bosses anyway. I might as well do the crime if I'm gonna have to pay the time. And while yes, there are benefits to dating the boss, there are also a lot of drawbacks as well. Most notably the fact that a lot of the time I expected that these men who I was in a relationship with for several years would prioritize our relationship over the job if it came to it. But But the moment I needed somebody to stand up for me at work because something egregious was happening, because they were trying to terminate me for something I didn't do, things of that nature, he would be like, oh, yeah, I mean, we can't both lose our jobs, though. But you wouldn't. You would just lose respect at work. But unfortunately, your respect at work matters more than my actual literal well-being as a human being. And it's really hard to think that someone loves you and to realize, oh, wow. And like very often it wasn't even secret, because a lot of times I was spending so much time at work that I was hanging out with these people outside of work. So there were coworkers who were friendly with us that knew that I was in relationships with people. So but the thing is not every person in a friend group, especially in a work-related friend group, actually is there because they want to be friends. Some of those people are just blabbing every little thing that you do back to the bosses, and then you, again, get disproportionately penalized for things that everyone is doing. Because weirdly enough, it would be like all 7 of us went to do something, but I would be the one who got penalized, and I, being the good girl, not wanting to get everybody else to go down with me, would be like, yeah, I was the only person there, it was just me, and the person who reported me, who knows how they knew I was there if they weren't there. And also, it becomes very ugly if the relationship falls apart before you're done needing the job, because if the relationship falls apart before you're done needing the job, you can go into work, you just went through a bad breakup, it's just going to be a normal Tuesday, it's going to be slow, nothing's going to be going on, and you can tell by the attitude in the office that your former significant other has told everybody else in the office who knows what terrible, horrible, no good, very bad stuff about you. And, another trigger warning, just like, I don't even really know what to trigger warning this other than just like really effed up behavior in a relationship. I did not know I was autistic until very recently, until after I'd already stopped dating. Because I dated terrible people, those terrible people would notice what things bothered me, what kind of sensory sensitivities I had, what time my medicine wore off, so they knew I was in particularly high pain levels. And they would do things like poke me in my trigger points, or they would start an argument with me when they know I was physically in pain, or they would start an argument with me when they know that there's a lot of widespread inflammation in my body and that I am brain fogged to hell and back and I have no idea what is actually happening before me. And they would just keep poking, literally, figuratively, both, very often both. They would just keep pushing every single button they knew I had. And a lot of these men were very smart, analytical, tactical, played a lot of strategy video games guys. There were a lot of guys that I dated that were really good at Crusader Kings 2, and they played me just as well as they played that game. They would just unrelentingly bother me when I was at my worst. And because I was at my worst, I wouldn't think to like record them or anything. I mean, also a lot of this was like 8 or more years ago, so I had less recording things with me at any given time. But they would always make sure that they would have like a recording or something like that. And they would always make sure that the recording would be like them just poking me on the shoulder lightly, probably for the 3,000th time. But the person watching the video doesn't know that, and I would turn around and I would have a total meltdown. And they would use these videos above me. They would say that they would show all of our friends, all of our people at work, everybody I knew, use it as an example of how bad of a person I was, how terrible I was, how I didn't deserve to be loved, and that's why all of my relationships fell apart, and I didn't deserve anything, I didn't deserve my job. And when people have that kind of stuff on you, and you also don't have a lot of money available to just like hire a lawyer, it's like, what do you even do in that situation? Like, that's not really technically illegal, right? Nothing that's being done there was technically illegal. And realistically, if I went to the cops and was like, oh, he's trying to blackmail me by using this video he took, and the video is just him poking me and me overreacting. Like, that's why I'm so uncomfortable with all of these videos that we freak out about with, where it's just somebody who's clearly having a meltdown because they're overwhelmed. Like, if we cannot see what actually triggered the meltdown, I'm just always so concerned. It may be hours of additional provocation that was specifically targeted against that person. And like, they don't pick big things to do. They pick tiny little things that are just extremely hard for you because you have trauma and because you have a physical disability. And the people that are viewing your response to those things are going to say that, well, they're poking you in your pain spot. You still have to be a good person in return. You can't be rude to them in return. And I'm so scared to even talk about this stuff because, and here's the other thing, another reason why I have not gone into a freaking industry that I have wanted to do for a long time until very recently was because I know on some level that there's probably somebody out there that has a video of me where they're just poking me and I'm having a total meltdown and are just waiting to the most opportune moment to throw that sucker out on the world and be like, oh, can you believe what Erin did? So many people, so many men have had so much control over my life and have kept me from doing something that I have wanted to do for so long, something that now that I do it, I get so much enjoyment out of because I knew the whole time that I would love this. Like, sure, there are parts of this that I don't love. I don't love dealing with abusive comments, and that's what a lot of people, and that's what a lot of comments are, but that's a topic for another video. There are so many things that I've wanted to do in my life that I haven't done for dumb reasons. There are so many mistakes that I've made in my life that I wish so many other people would not make those mistakes. And so that's why I'm going to be starting this kind of story time series, because I've been through a lot of crazy stuff in my life, and let me live through it so maybe you don't have to. Or maybe when your friend's like, hey, I think your relationship has a lot of red flags, you're like, wait, maybe I should listen. Instead of, oh, you just want my man. Hi, my name is AerinMoriarty. I make a lot of content about pop culture and how pop culture influences us, being sapphic, especially being a late in life sapphic, the intersection of a lot of different things and how it impacts my life. I do a lot of analytical content that is about Taylor Swift and the artists around her and the music and the videos that they make and things of that nature. I am going to be making less content for TikTok going forward because I have a lot of problems with that platform nowadays. It used to be great for me, but now it's just really not. It's just a lot of stress with no reward. So I'm trying to make videos that are not quite an hour long, that maybe come out a couple of times a week, that are a little bit less edited, but like a little just more me, my personality, so I'm not just entirely making analytical content. I love analytical content, don't get me wrong. It takes a lot of time to work, and the big problem is these meat sticks. I have to use my fingers to edit, and I have arthritis. So unfortunately, I kind of gotten this idea where I don't think people will watch my videos if they're not well edited, because realistically that's what statistics have shown me. But I'm hoping that if I do a mixture of some stuff that's not as edited and some stuff that is very edited, and it's a mixture of topics as well, that I can kind of play with the computer system. I am also going to be making a Substack for Taylor Swift thoughts that are a little bit too that much for this place. I'll be talking about that more in my next Taylor Swift video, which is going to be about Taylor Swift the Cinephile. I realized you needed that before you needed Taylor Swift and Marlene Dietrich, because I think I was doing the context in the wrong order in those. That video is absolutely coming. I'm going to talk about Marlena a little bit in the Taylor the Cinephile video, so if you've been interested in that, don't worry, you're going to get your fill, I promise. I just realized that if I give people context, they're going to appreciate it more when it gets here. As for story times, I have a couple of story times listed. I need to shorten this name, but right now I'm calling it The Best Friendships of My Life Were the Product of a Situation Where Men Were Trying to Make Us Hate Each Other. And since I'm going to be doing more videos here and not doing this type of content for TikTok, I have the ideas of stop responding to bots, curate your intake, and why I'm finally cutting TikTok out of my life as kind of a like digital health and lifestyle type video. It's kind of like these story times where I discuss like why I've made the decisions that I've made with tech, like as somebody who worked in the tech industry for a long time, trying to kind of use that part of my brain a little bit more, especially since I'm going to need more content ideas than just me yammering about Taylor Swift for an hour. I'm still going to be doing a lot of content about yammering about Taylor Swift. A lot of my long form content's going to be about that. If you like this video, you would probably like my video about lavender dating. And if you want to hear more about Taylor Swift, I recommend you start with my Intro to Swiftcraft video, because it kind of explains my analytical perspective that I use when I watch her videos or listen to her songs. Oh my gosh, my brain. Thank you so very much for watching. Have a nice day.